Good evening, everybody. Welcome into episode 7 of the Scarlet and Gray podcast. I am Tyler Johnson. I am joined by Jordan Dalton on this Victory Monday. JD, how you doing tonight, man?
I'm good. I'm ready to talk some football.
Oh, yeah, man. Always ready to talk Ohio State football, especially, again, we're celebrating another Victory Monday. But before we do, we have an announcement. The Scarlet and Gray podcast, and now all shows on Network 216, are live on all streaming platforms. We are no longer with Twitch for various reasons. But either way, we are now live YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. But if you guys want to send comments, send questions, you have to make sure that you are subscribed to the YouTube channel. That is free. It's a lot of support for the channel, and we would really appreciate it. So you can subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's just Network 216, and we really would appreciate everybody's support. Also, that the Scarlet and Gray podcast and Network 216 is proud to be a partner of Underdog Fantasy. And right now, get your pick'ems in for Monday Night Football. Giants and Cowboys, Saquon Barkley's got some good prop bets tonight. Daniel Jones, obviously he struggles as a quarterback, but there's some good bets there. Do you think Cooper Rush? Do you think he surprises some people tonight? You can enter all of it. And that is for prop bets at Underdog Fantasy. Use code 216 to double your first deposit up to $100. JD, it was a Saturday night that I don't know about you, but absolutely incredible to me. I was not expecting this at all. Ohio State just came out and just blitzed Wisconsin. And I'm not even talking like just defense. I'm just talking just blitzed them, just got him out of the building after the first quarter. Buckeyes started off up 28-0 on the Wisconsin Badgers. I mean, man, what are your thoughts from this game Saturday night? I thought it would be like close. I thought we win by probably like 14 points, maybe a little bit more. I was not expecting this type of performance.
Yeah, the offense came out with some firepower. Spooky season was definitely in session with the all black. Little bit of fall in the air on a really awesome Saturday evening in Columbus. My mom was actually at the game, and she said the weather could not have been more perfect for a football game. So it was definitely a game that we had marked, and man, the Buckeyes came out and really showcased that they are the best offense in college football, and they did it in a variety of ways. They did it running the ball. They did it passing the ball. They got their wide receivers involved, tight end involved. It was really impressive offensively, and defensively. The defense came out, played extremely well to start the game. Later on in the game, we kind of had a couple minor hiccups. Allen got going later in the game, once that defense was kind of worn out, and he was able to get some chunk yardage, got a lot of big runs off against this team, and he's one of the best backs in the country. So I think at that point in the game, the game was already over, so it's not as much to be concerned with as if it was like first quarter, Allen's ripping off like 50-yarders. But overall, it was a really good showing for both sides of the ball, and I was really impressed.
Yeah, man. I again, like everything you saw from Ohio State, we couldn't have scripted this any better. I know we were talking in our pregame spaces. We saw Denzel Burke was going to be out for this game, and we started to get I mean, okay, maybe not nervous is the right word for it, but I mean, there were some concerns. You had a secondary that was down quite a few corners in this game. And it really did not seem to matter. I mean, just recapping some of the stats. We'll start off with Wisconsin because the Buckeye offense is the Buckeye offense. Wisconsin, Graham Mertz. Forget everything I said about him being a decent quarterback. He was terrible. This guy seriously should have. I can't believe that he wasn't benched in this game. 11 of 20, 94 yards. 94 yards passing as a quarterback, a college football Division I quarterback, 1 touchdown, 1 pick, and a 15.4 overall rating. Their running back, Braylon Allen, actually completed a pass for 10 yards. What were your thoughts on Graham Mertz's performance? Because it was absolutely terrible. I mean, are you surprised that he wasn't benched in this game? Because it was an awful performance by Wisconsin's starting quarterback.
I won't say I was surprised with his performance. I think the defense deserves a lot of credit in how they played Mertz. Just to highlight, Eichenberg was absolutely outstanding, and he's been outstanding all year. He was the guy that nobody expected to be filling in at such a high rate on the defense, because I mean, he wasn't even really a blip on our radar when it came to like defensive players to look out for the season. This guy might win the Buckeyes Award this year, and he was all over the field. He was the highest graded player on PFF's defensive rating for Ohio State. And he is just popping on the screen. He was outstanding. The secondary, they were young. I think we were talking about on the spaces, we were missing 4 scholarship corners, but it didn't seem to matter.
Tanner McAllister, by the way, we've been waiting on Tanner McAllister, the transfer out of Oklahoma State, who is the one that's familiar with this defense, to really show up. He showed up Saturday night. He was fantastic. Obviously the pick, but man, okay. Talk the play. I know you'll remember this too at the end of the half where he just, now mind you, I think he got kind of lucky, but he still made the play. I mean, he dove halfway across the field and broke up what would have been a touchdown.
Yeah, so that was Wisconsin's play right there. That should have been a touchdown. There was a busted coverage on that play, and Tanner McAllister was able to fly across the field and make that break up last second. And I think I tweeted from the account. I was just like, that was the play of the night for the defense. I butchered his name like 5 times, so I apologize. I was spelling it MCALL, but it's MCC. But yeah, I think this was his first game as a Buckeye, if I'm not wrong. I think he was out the first couple weeks. No, he just hasn't been playing.
He just hasn't played well. He's graded out as one of the lowest Buckeye players this entire season. He is, until Saturday night, he really had been pretty much missing. That's why you have not really seen or heard much of him. He has not looked good until now. Yeah,
that was the performance we needed from a player, and we did talk about it before the game, that the fact that we were missing all those corners, there might be a guy that stands out that we're going to be talking about on Monday. And he's the guy that stood out in that cornerback room. And he looked really good. Josh Proctor had some really great plays in the secondary. And I think overall the defensive line just played lights out. And Sonny Styles got on the field, the 17-year-old true freshman. And he looks
fantastic.
Pretty good. He looks pretty good. And they're playing him pretty sparingly, but I think he was on the field for like 9 plays, but he's definitely popping off the screen, and I can't be more excited for him in the future. He's got a big future ahead of him.
It's nice to see us too. I think we can agree with this. It's nice to see us too really recruiting that secondary, because it's been a little while since we've had 5 stars in our secondary. It really has. I mean, man, I can't remember the last 5-star player we had in the secondary. It's been a while.
That's been, I know like a couple of the guys that are currently there of like 4-star, like Ronnie Hickman, I think was a 4-star.
He was, yeah.
Cameron Martinez was a 3-star athlete that they converted to safety. So there's a couple guys back there that are newer to the position, whether it's safety or corner. So it was good to see some guys making plays finally.
Finally, yeah, you're right.
I mean, Wisconsin's offense wasn't one to write home about either. Like throwing the ball downfield, they weren't known as a passing team. So we're gonna get into some big games later on where this secondary might be the reason we win or lose those games. So,
I think too, something to go off about the passing game, JD, for Wisconsin. Once they lost Clay Cundiff, that was a huge blow for them. I mean, this is a guy at tight end. He's one of the leaders of their team. When you lose a guy like that, you're on the road. You're already down. You're already getting dismantled, and you lose one of your leaders. I mean, it was overall, it was just brutal for them. I mean, their leading receiver for this game was Skylar Bell. He only had 4 catches for 55 yards. And then Braylon Allen, kudos to him for not giving up. 23 rushes, 165 yards, and a touchdown. I will add a caveat to that touchdown. The game, Ohio State already put in their backups at that point. So Braylon Allen got his touchdown for his stats.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was alluding to. Like, he did come on late with the run game, but it was too late.
It didn't even matter at that point.
Yeah, the game was statistically over after the first quarter. Like, it was
easily over by the end of the first quarter.
I mean, were we up by 28-0 at the end of the first, or was like early second?
No, it was, so we were up 21-0 at the end of the first, and then it got up to 28-0 before Wisconsin actually scored.
Yeah, so Wisconsin didn't score more than 21, so our offense came out, we got the ball first, went down the field, just smacked them in the face. And it was we just took them out behind the woodshed and beat them. So it was.
I mean, that's exactly what this was. And I mean, who are some players that really stood out for you? I can obviously some of the obvious ones, because I will go back. I always love looking at the PFF grades because, again, you can't base everything off grades, but at the same time, credit where it's due. I think the first guy that stands out for me, because I want to stick to the defense for right now because we both have a guy on offense that we have in mind here, but I think Zach Harrison really has played pretty well so far this year. And I was very critical at the beginning of the year. I told you and Nick, I've said it multiple times, Zach Harrison was a guy that as soon as he had so much hype building when he got here, and he just has not been the guy I wanted him to be. Like, he's always been a guy that struggled, but Zach Harrison seems to be putting it together so far. What are your thoughts on him as we're beginning the season? So far, a 71.9 grade to begin this year.
No, he's playing up to his potential this year. And he's playing a lot of snaps. They are rotating a lot of the younger guys in, whether that's JT. Jackson Williams has been playing all over the field, but not just at the end. But Zach Harrison's really stepping into that leadership role on the D line. And him and Tyler Friday both had really good games on the line. Mm-hmm. And it was a game where it actually mattered what those guys did down low, because Wisconsin's run game is no joke, and those guys are the ones that are setting the edge, making sure Wisconsin's not getting outside of the tackles, and I think they did outstanding. And then they're the guys that are setting the tone for the backers to come down and make tackles, which our linebackers have played really well this year also. So I can't say enough about how the D-line and the linebackers have been playing to start this year, because this is the first time in I don't know, 6-7 years we've had a linebacker group that was consistent in making tackles. It's been a long time. I mean, I can't even remember the last time I had a good group. So those guys have definitely been standing out to me. It all starts with Zach Harrison down low.
It does.
So I think he's the tone setter for the defensive line. Those young guys are going to follow his lead, and I think he's doing a great job with it.
And before we move on to the offense, just want to read the top 5 defensive players. that graded for the Buckeyes according to Pro Football Focus. Tommy Eichenberg was number 1. I think he's on his way to being a finalist for the Buckeyes Award if he continues the season that he's having, which has been phenomenal. So far, he has an 87.9 this week. Zach Harrison was second, 77.6. Tanner McAllister, 75.6. Josh Proctor was a 69.4. And JT Tumliala was a 68.6. I know I butchered that name completely wrong, but I get an A for effort. Now, JD, moving to the offensive side of the ball. We saw, and this really changes the entire Buckeye offense. We know that CJ Stroud. He threw his first pick. The guy was bound to throw a pick. This offense is unstoppable with the tight end. And the emergence of Cade Stover was absolutely huge for the Buckeyes. It's going to be huge this year. He is now on the radar of NFL draft scouts officially. Dane Brugel from The Athletic has been talking about him. 4 catches, 51 yards, 2 touchdowns, named the Offensive Player of the Week by the Ohio State coaching staff. I mean, just talk about Cade, because when you have a tight end to this offense, you already have JSN, regardless if he's healthy or not, Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Egbuka, Julian Fleming, Xavier Johnson, Jaden Ballard. You just have so many weapons on this offense. Well, that's the thing. I didn't, because I'm just talking about the weapons that you mainly throw to on offense. They have so many weapons. How can any team in the country cover this Ohio State offense?
I think we know the answer. They can't. When this offense is clicking, there's too many options for a defense to key on. And CJ Stroud has proven time and again that he can pick apart a defense, and he can make all the throws. And it doesn't matter who is on the field for the Buckeyes. They are stacked offensively. We're just talking about Cade right now, but we're going to get into the rest of their offense. They were lights out. Offensive line dominated the entire game. Was CJ Stroud even touched? I
think that he might have been sacked once, maybe. That's a huge maybe, though.
I'd have to look it up because I don't remember. But yeah, Cade Stover. We asked Nathan Baird about it last week when he was on the podcast, and he said Cade Stover's not the most athletic tight end that we've had. He's not the best tight end that we've had, but for some reason, Ohio State decided this is the tight end we're going to use as a weapon for this offense. And I saw a tweet during the game, and it was somebody who tweeted out Jeremy Ruckert had left some angry voicemails on Ryan Day's cell phone during halftime because there was never a game where Ruckert was used as much as Cade Stover was this past weekend. And I'm happy for the guy. 2 touchdowns, finally gets his first career touchdown after that big miss last week where he was wide open in the end zone. But yeah, this offense is completely different when he's clicking with CJ Stroud, because like you said, when you have all these weapons on the outside and Cade's running this seam route down the middle, and he's making catches and then getting the yards after catch. This offense just looked different than it did in the first 3 weeks, because Cade had a couple big catches against Toledo. And that was the first time we're like, oh, I think we got something here with a tight end. And then they came out, and that first drive, they hit him for a big gain, and then he scored a touchdown a couple plays later, and we're just like, oh man, we got a playmaker at tight end, and they're calling him Farmer Gronk, and it's exciting because he's the captain on the team, and everybody is rooting for this guy to succeed. Ryan Day talk about him. CJ Stroud talked about him the week before,
Mhm.
and he's finally like putting it all together. And I'm not gonna lie, dude, I think he has great hands. I think he can catch anything. I mean, he had that one catch where he like landed on his head, I think, and he still almost caught the ball. But yeah, he's been outstanding. I'm really excited to see what the rest of the season has in store for him in the offense.
Mhm.
Just because they're using him in a lot of different ways. They're not just lining him up as a normal tight end. A lot of the plays they put him out wide. I don't know if you noticed that, but they'll line him up out wide and then they bring him down the line as like, and then he'll be like a, I don't even know what you call it, like a cutback blocker.
Oh, dude, that was something, by the way. I don't know if you saw that Dane Brugler pointed out that his blocking is just
you could literally watch him every
beautiful.
run play, every big run play we broke against Wisconsin. Cade was the one that had the block that sprung it.
Exactly.
And so you add that on top of his pass catching abilities and his playmaking abilities in space, and he is looking like a serious weapon for the Buckeyes moving forward. So I'm really excited to see where that takes our offense.
Yeah, I mean, I am too. There's no doubt about that. I mean, speaking of just the offense in general here, we just got to go over some stats. CJ Stroud, 17 of 27. And you could make the argument that he like missed on a decent amount of throws he normally doesn't miss on. But still, 17 of 27, 281, 5 touchdowns, 1 pick, 98.7 QBR. Travion Henderson, 21 carries, 121 yards, no touchdown, but 5.8 yards a carry. Mayan Williams, 11 carries, 101 yards, 9.2 yards a carry, and 2 touchdowns. Before we get into the receivers, were you a little surprised at how much they leaned on Travion after Mayan Williams kind of had his breakout in the first half? Because Mayan Williams had 11 carries, and then after that, it was all Travion basically, and they just went straight Travion.
The way I look at that is I think – you're gonna hate me for this, but I think they view Mayan Williams as the tone setter, the running back one per se.
Interesting
for this offense, and I understand that there's a very major difference between Henderson and Williams and how they run and what their abilities are in space. Williams is not going to break a super long run. I think they said during that game he's only had one run greater than 35 yards in his career or something. So
yeah, it's true.
He's not going to break a huge – it's probably that his first game last year where he broke that huge one. But, yeah, he's not going to break these big runs. But he runs hard, and he's a very patient runner with the football. And I think just the way that they view him and you can almost see with the offense that when he's on the field, they are able to move the ball more effectively. Just it's almost like the defense isn't keen on him being on the field, because I think everybody knows what the ability of Travion Henderson and what he can do. And when he's on the field, I think that sends a red flag up for the defense. And I think everybody's just getting hit in the mouth with Mayan Williams this year. He was my dark horse for the offense. I thought he was going to be the guy that really benefited from playing alongside Henderson, but just the offense in general. I just thought there would not be a lot of defenses that would be worried about Mayan Williams, and he's really proven that he might be the guy in that running back room. And he's not the end all be all at running back, but he's the power back, the short down yardage guy. And he's like the perfect complement to Travion Henderson.
I would even make the argument with Mayan Williams. This guy would start for any team in the country pretty much, unless you're Texas that has Bijan Robinson. Other than that,
I think Allen for Wisconsin is
that's fair
in the conversation. But Mine Williams has just proven that he is that guy. He's been lights out for the Buckeyes this year, and they are just par for the course, staying pretty consistent with splitting carries between the two guys, and their yardage is almost identical right now. Mm-hmm. They both have run for about 310 yards. They're both averaging over 6 yards a carry. They both have 3 touchdowns. They both have 43 plus carries. So it seems like they like giving one guy a breather while the other one takes the field, and I think it's worked out really well. I think that was something we didn't quite expect as a podcast, as a group. We all kind of
that Brian Williams would be this much featured.
Right, and it's worked out really well for both guys. I think Mine's really proven that he belongs and that he deserves the playing time that he's getting. So,
I absolutely agree with that. I mean, we're very spoiled here in Ohio. For the Browns, we have Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. For Ohio State, we have Travion Henderson and Brian Williams. Before though that we move on and get to our guest that we have this evening, I just wanted to read off some final stats for the wide receivers. Emeka Egbuka, 6 catches, 118 yards, 2 touchdowns, 19.7 yards a catch. Julian Fleming, 4 catches, 67 yards, 1 touchdown. Julian Fleming finally looked like the player we've been waiting on. Obviously, we mentioned Cade Stover earlier. Marvin Harrison Jr., this one surprised me. 3 catches, 45 yards. That's it. That one surprised me. I mean, because he made a lot of noise that game for the cleats he wore in his Apple Watch. But other than that, it was kind of a surprise that that Marvin Harrison Jr. wasn't targeted more. Were you a little surprised by that?
No, dude, we have so many weapons offensively, and there's no way you can feed all these weapons and everybody get the stats, you know?
Yeah.
That's
too many mouths to feed, man.
There is, and it's in college football, it's a little bit different than like NFL, because Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to be a first-round pick.
Easily.
He's his size, his hand, like he's already proven it on the field. But we have so many players that have shown this season already. It's early. We're 4-0, and we've already seen so many wideouts being featured in this offense. And I don't even think JSN has a touchdown this year. And there's still like Egbuka has been phenomenal. He's been everything and way more than we ever thought he would be this early in the season. Marvin Harrison, he's the dude. But then Julian Fleming finally gets on the field, scores 2 touchdowns. And you can just see how explosive this offense can be, and it's scary. It's scary for a lot of these defenses that we're about to play.
Yeah, it really is, man. And as we're wrapping up the offensive side of the ball, just some final player grades. Brian Williams, he graded out at an 88.7. Now, mind you, again, didn't play a ton of snaps, but still ran for over 100 yards, so I have to mention him. Cade Stover was number 2 at an 84.7. Emeka Egbuka an 82.3. Luke Weipler was an 80.7, and Donovan Jackson a 79.2. So another great performance overall by the Buckeye offense, but also just the offensive line in general was fantastic. And before we get to our guest this evening, just want to take a minute. I mean, we're wearing our shirts as always, but the Scarlet and Gray podcast in Network 216 is proud to be a partner of Homage Athletic Apparel. Right now, guys, you can go get your OSU Jam shirt. That's with CJ Stroud, Jackson Smith, and Jigba. If you want one with Travion Henderson and CJ Stroud, you can go get that as well. All kinds of Ohio State gear for you. I'm wearing mine. I'm always supporting that CJ Stroud Heisman campaign. Be sure to go get your gear. Again, we post the links on our page very frequently. You guys can go in and really purchase some of that. And you guys need it. I mean, Ohio State this year, they're on their way to hopefully competing for a national title. And you guys need that gear. You got to get ready for this season. Homage has a lot of great apparel for you guys that you'll love. And the best thing about it, too, so comfortable. I mean, JD, we've talked about it before, like even off show, too. One of the things about Homage that's just fantastic is the fact that everything about it, dude, is just, it's comfortable. Some shirts that you'll get from some of these other companies, dude, they're bulky and whatnot. And it's just sometimes it's just not the most comfortable, but you do not have that issue with Homage whatsoever. So I don't know about you, but really thankful for my Homage gear.
Heck yeah, dude. I have an NBA Jam Cavs shirt with Darius Garland, Evan Mobley. I actually was wearing it all day today. So.
Hey man, can't go wrong. Can't go wrong with that, obviously, especially with the Cavs becoming as good as they are. I mean, and the talent that they've got coming in. But guys, pretty like here any second we will be joined by Brian Fonseca. He is host of the Rutgers Rant Podcast, and also he is a beat reporter for NJ.com. Brian, how you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. So this weekend's game, Ohio State versus Rutgers, the first thing we want to get into is kind of some of the losses that Rutgers have had this year talent-wise. They lost two of their best offensive weapons, Bo Melton and Isaiah Pacheco. Can you talk about how that's really affected the Rutgers offense so far this year?
Yeah, they've been. I'll start with Bo Melton. They've missed a major receiving weapon. There hasn't really been a guy that's kind of replaced him in that sense and been the leading guy. He was the leading receiver for 3 straight years before he left. Taj Harris, a Syracuse transfer, was supposed to be that guy. He left the program after one game for personal reasons. Unenrolled from the school, so there's no shot he's coming back. That left a major hole, and there have been some guys by committee who have shown up. Eric Cruikshank, Chris Long has flashed, the freshman kid, but no one has really grabbed the spot as the top wide receiver. And part of that is because of some offensive line struggles. Part of that is because of a shuffling of quarterbacks, some injuries back there. So there's a lot of factors. But as far as replacing Bo Melton, no one has really stepped up in that regard. And Isaiah Pacheco, I should say, sorry. They're running a bit of a running back by committee as well. Kyle Monungai is the leading guy, but Al-Shadi Salam, a sophomore, is a more shifty guy. He's playing a lot of snaps. And Sam Brown, a true freshman, big body, really bruiser type running back. He's been getting more and more run as the season has come along. So no guy has replaced Pacheco per se as the guy, but they're kind of, again, going by committee, and that's affected by the offensive line and the rest of the offense.
Yeah, and one of the big questions, and you actually wrote a really good piece on this that I want you to kind of dive into a little bit. Right now at the quarterback position, it's kind of uncertain for Rutgers. Evan Simon's been the guy. It looks like here these last couple games. Gavin Wimsatt, he's also has gotten some reps, but they still have Noah Vidral. What is the situation with the Rutgers quarterback position? What do you think it means for Saturday's game against Ohio State, considering Greg Schiano sounds like he's unsure of who's going to be the starter on Saturday?
Yeah, there's injuries to two guys, Noah Vidral and Gavin Wimsatt. They both missed the last game. Vedral's been hurt since training camp, and then Wimsatt got hurt against Temple. From what sounds like what Schiano told us today, they're not sure who is going to be ready on Saturday just yet. They'll know more when practice starts again tomorrow. I would probably assume that Evan Simon, who started the last 2 games while those guys were hurt, will get to start again. He was, up and down against Iowa. A lot of that had to do with the offensive line. I mean, he got sacked 3 times, hit 12 other times, just pummeled throughout the game. So when he wasn't getting pummeled, he was a bit better. It's hard to really gauge that, considering, he probably was nervous about pressure coming because he was pressured on half a snap. So he's a young guy. He's learning. He's growing with more experience. But I just don't know if Ohio State is going to be a place where he takes another step. I think it's going to be a matter of, for him and really for most of this Rutgers team, of surviving.
And kind of given the quarterback situation, who do you think? And again, it's hard to know because, I mean, it's Monday, and we have a couple of days before a decision has to be made. Who do you think ends up starting on Saturday?
I'll assume Simon, only because I know he's healthy, or I believe he's healthy. We talked to him after the game on Saturday. No indication he got hurt. And as for the other guys, I don't know. Last I saw they were hurt. They warmed up before Iowa, but they weren't healthy enough to play. I'm going just health based on health, purely on what I know. It's going to be Evan Simon.
Okay, awesome. And some of the things, you kind of mentioned like Rutgers. They haven't really found a running back this year. That's really replaced Isaiah Pacheco, and same with the wide receivers. But who are some players on the offensive side of the ball that Ohio State fans need to really know about on this Rutgers team?
Aaron Cruikshank, wide receiver, Wisconsin transfer, dynamic guy. If he gets the ball in his hands in space, can make some things happen. Sam Brown, a freshman running back who's really been emerging. I think he has a chance. He's had their biggest run for the past 2 games. He has a chance of maybe splitting one. Al-Shadi Salam, if he gets in space, is dangerous too. But there's no real home run threat. Maybe Chris Long, again, another young guy who's emerging. But there's no real home run threat, no real one guy who's like, you have to key in on this guy, which is partly part of the problem for this Rutgers offense, that they have no go-to guy. No guys really emerged.
Yeah, kind of going along with that. How do you see Rutgers? And again, trying to think of how to word this. Obviously, that they are huge underdogs coming into the shoe, about, I believe, 39-point underdogs. For them to have a chance on Saturday, what do you think needs to happen?
Meteor needs to fall on Columbus. I think everyone's realistic about it. It would take a miracle. Seriously, the talent gap is so wide. The everything between these programs is just so wide, and that's even under normal circumstances. Rutgers is banged up in a lot of key positions. Ohio State looked like they could have scored 1,000 points on Wisconsin if they wanted to. It just it's really hard. It would be, I think, no exaggeration, one of, if not maybe not the biggest upset in the history of college football, but it'd be up there. It would be unbelievable if Rutgers. I would be surprised if Rutgers kept it within 3 scores. I think if they win, it would be one of the greatest upsets. I don't think there's really any scenario where it could happen, frankly.
I'd like to take that question and kind of turn it into a different direction. So Greg Schiano had a really good first tenure with Rutgers. He ended up leaving, coached at Ohio State for a couple seasons as a defensive coordinator. What is the general perception of him there at Rutgers right now, and where he's taking the program in the future?
Greg Schiano is, I think everyone would agree, the greatest coach in Rutgers history. He just became the winningest coach in Rutgers history a couple weeks ago. Part of that is the lack of history within the program. They've been playing college football more than anybody, but really have not won as much as most programs in Power 5 football. That's just the truth. Greg is the one guy that, for whatever reason, all of his traits, his New Jerseyness, his charisma, his football know-how, he'll figure out how to win at this place. They're building towards, the hope is to build towards what they were when he left, a consistent bowl team who every once in a while could spring together a special group of guys that can make a run, an 06 type run. If Schiano had stayed another 2 years after that, they had a tremendous 2011 class that really could have been special. Those are always what ifs, obviously. But that's the hope of building back up to that. And I think Rutgers fans, the majority, those who have perspective and understand this place, know that Schiano is the right guy for the job. I think he's done about as good a job as anyone could have reasonably expected since he's come back for the second time. There are bumps in the road. I don't think people are particularly happy with how the Iowa game happened this weekend. But on the whole, I got to think that a majority of the Rutgers fan base is really happy at where they are, especially given where they were when he took over 3 years ago.
Yeah, and kind of piggybacking off Jordan's question there, as far as like with Greg Schiano and the Rutgers program, would you say, because there are some programs in the Big Ten obviously that are a little bit down, would you say Rutgers, since they've gotten to the Big Ten, obviously they were a doormat really the entire time, but with Greg Schiano, do you think they're more of an up and coming program now in the Big Ten, not just for football but basketball and other sports as well?
Certainly other sports, they've proven that in the last few years. A lot of those programs, basketball, field hockey, women's soccer, men's soccer's on the come up. A lot of the Olympic sports are in the right direction, and football is maybe not trying to follow that. It's probably, I don't think Greg Schiano is watching what the women's soccer program is doing and emulating that. But my point being, they're trying to follow that success. Greg has said multiple times that he feels the trajectory is going in the right direction. It's not, and he keeps reiterating, he did again today, that it's not a direct shot. It's not all the way up. There are bumps. But I tend to agree from my vantage point. they are improving year after year. You can see it on the recruiting trail. You can see it on the field. It's just a matter of, I think Rutgers has gone from being that doormat, that automatic win on everyone's schedule, to a team that could beat teams, in the bottom to middle of the pack. And now it's a matter of building to the point where they can threaten a team like Penn State or Michigan State, that upper tier that's just below Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, Rutgers has been really fun to watch, especially in the NCAA tournament the last couple of years. I've really enjoyed watching them. But Brian, as far as for this weekend's game, we want to end it, of course, with the prediction. What do you think the final score ends up being this weekend?
Sure. I saw you guys plug our podcast. I really appreciate that. We had recorded an episode today about 3 hours ago. I made the prediction. I'll give you the same prediction. I think Ohio State could score 100 points if they wanted to. I really do. And I think that they will stop at 56, 59, something like that. I just can't imagine them running up the score. So given that, and I just don't think Rutgers can score enough points to cover the 41 if that's the case. So I think I went with Ohio State 56, Rutgers 10, some variation of that. I don't think this will be a game the same way that Ohio State scored that first touchdown against Wisconsin and everyone in the building knew it was over. I think it'll be a similar deal unless Rutgers takes a miracle 7-0 lead, I just don't think there's going to be really any suspense at the shoe on Saturday.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Brian, for joining us. We really appreciate it, you guys. You can read his work at nj.com. And, again, you can listen to the Rutgers Rant podcast that Brian hosts. So thank you, Brian, so much for joining us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a pleasure, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. Man, JD, I mean, with Rutgers, I mean, he was honest. I mean, their quarterback situation right now is kind of brutal. I mean, they truly do not know who their quarterback is going to be. That's got to be a very uneasy, especially when you're going into Columbus. You're going into Columbus, and again, it's nothing against Rutgers, but any team going into Columbus, it's brutal for them. Even with your starting quarterback, Rutgers doesn't even know who their quarterback will be on Saturday.
Yeah, that's got to be really tough. God bless Rutgers, man. I just remember when they Greg Schiano's first tenure, they were on the up and come up. They had some really good players. And
Ray Rice, Brian Leonard.
They had some really good players, and they were, like you said, consistently in bowl games every year. And it would just be, I think it would be great for the Big Ten to have a Rutgers return to good, solid football. I think that would, it could not hurt anything. And that goes for any team in the Big Ten. Good Big Ten football from every school just makes everybody better. It makes the football to watch better. I'm my biggest pet peeve with college football, and you could probably attest to this too, is how many games are blowouts.
Yeah.
It's
a problem, dude.
It's the worst part about college football. It's such a top-heavy organization when it comes to football, and it, like I said, when teams are better, when Rutgers is better, when Maryland's good, when these bottom Northwestern's good, Illinois is good, when those teams are good, that makes the football so much better to watch.
Yeah.
And so I root for every Big Ten team to win as long as they're not playing Ohio State, and as long as they're Michigan. But even I sometimes root for Michigan to win, because if they're undefeated at the end of the year, that's just more for us, if we beat them and we were trying to make a statement going into the playoff. So, yeah, it's just hopefully it's a decent game for the first quarter, but yeah, I don't honestly see it being much more than a check in the box. Offense works on what they need to work on. Defense, obviously we have to work on the secondary, but everybody just they work on what they need to improve on during this week going into Rutgers, and they execute, and we get the easy done.
And you kind of make a good point as far as a lot of college football, not all, but you do make a point. A lot of college football, the elite programs, so Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia, Clemson, well, maybe not Clemson as much this year, but just blow out teams. And it's seriously every single week until about either you get to the college football playoff or you have one top game against a top team that it's tough. And I think you make a good point because a lot of people like college football more than NFL, like professional football, NFL. But with the NFL, it's competitive every week. I mean, I'm not going to get too much in the NFL talk because I'll save that for Faithful Dogs on Wednesday nights. But as far as NFL, like Jacksonville went to LA and destroyed the Chargers. I mean, you just have these games where these teams that aren't good are winning games. And in college, it does happen from time to time. But if you're one of these top teams, man, you rarely lose.
I will say there are a lot of blue blood programs this year that are being challenged by smaller schools. Who is it? Middle Tennessee just beat somebody, right? Somebody big.
They just went to Miami. They got paid $1.5 million to go to Miami and destroy them. Yeah,
so like that's happened quite a few times. Appalachian State won against Texas A&M this year. Like there are games that is what makes college football great, is when those smaller schools get paid to go in there and beat a school. But it doesn't happen often, and even within our own conference, even within the Big Ten, we have such a power power curve that these bottom tier teams, there's like no chance that they compete. There's like, and I personally, I think there's gonna be a reorder coming, especially with this,
with USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten.
Yeah, there's gonna be a big reorder of conferences. We're not going to have the East-West anymore. It's going to be they're going to reorder it because every year it's Ohio State or Michigan against Wisconsin, Minnesota.
It's either Wisconsin, Northwestern. It's so far it's pretty much been Wisconsin or Northwestern.
And Minnesota made it that one year. But that side of the Big Ten is way more competitive than our side. And our side is so top heavy compared to their side.
Mm-hmm.
Like when's the last time they won the Big Ten championship, the West?
They have never won the Big Ten championship.
Right. So why are we still doing this? Why haven't we changed the way that we're running the Big Ten championship? So,
or why not realign?
Yeah, they should have realigned years ago. The way they realigned, like the original Legends versus whatever it was, divisions. Do you remember that?
Oh, I know. Legends and Leaders, I think, is what it was.
Yeah, the Legend and Leaders division, and I think it's basically what the East and West is, and then they added in Rutgers and Maryland.
See, I think with USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten here, you are going to have to realign. And I could see a scenario, not saying this happens, but be huge for the Big Ten if they did this. You realign it. You have Michigan and Ohio State in separate sides because then you get that you have the opportunity to potentially have a Big Ten championship game of Ohio State, Michigan. And then I could see like you would play Ohio State with USC. I mean, there are a lot of possibilities here. And
Ohio State has to play USC once a year. And then that is like an ultimate moneymaker.
Who doesn't want to see that?
That's the 1962 Rose Bowl rematch every year. And you switch it between the Horseshoe and the Rose Bowl. Like, come on, dude. Or the Coliseum, sorry. But even if like they have to play UCLA in the Rose Bowl, like that's like Ohio State's gonna their fans are gonna sell more tickets than UCLA.
Mm-hmm.
Like
exactly.
There's probably more Ohio State fans in Southern California than UCLA fans right now. I was like, when we went to,
ooh, that's quite a statement. Okay.
dude, they need to show up for their games. They literally
That's
almost
embarrassing.
they literally almost lost to South Alabama with nobody in the stands. Like, so
It's embarrassing, dude.
I mean, it'll be really cool to see how they realign. And who knows, we might actually get a couple more additions by the time this 12-team playoff rolls around. And like we talked about at the beginning of the season with who we'd like to see in the Big Ten, you could see a lot of these Pac-12 teams moving into the Big Ten and get a
lot of rumors around Washington and Oregon, so we'll see. Do that, things really get interesting.
The Big Ten strengthens if that happens. And,
absolutely.
And with Texas, Oklahoma going to the SEC, there's going to be some really good college football, good regular season college football with those programs playing each other. I love watching SEC football just because those games are usually pretty close with a lot of those teams. Like Tennessee's got a really good team this year. And
Tennessee is a sleeper right now for the college football playoff.
They really are. If they can make it through the buzzsaw and beat either one of Alabama or Georgia, they got both on their schedule remaining. If they can beat one of those two teams, dude, I'll see you in the college football playoff, because I think one win over those one of those two teams is going to be enough to get them in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, going back and even just talking, and I'm not trying to make this all about Tennessee, talk about quite a turnaround they've had. I mean, Josh Heupel has really rebuilt that program. And when Tennessee is good, it's good for college football. I mean, for a while, they were an elite program. And when Philip Fulmer retired, it kind of went downhill. They've had some struggles. Tennessee is back. I mean, I don't know if you saw the video or pictures from that stadium on Saturday. It looked absolutely incredible.
Dude,
they had the checkerboard.
They have a really crazy fan base that really deserves winning. They love their college football in Tennessee. I will say that for a fact. They love the Vols. So, yeah, I'm rooting for them to win out the SEC. I think that would be so sick for college football. And along the same lines as Tennessee, Texas is one of those teams that when Texas is good, college football is so much better. And they go out there and didn't they lose this weekend at Texas Tech? They
did. They lost.
And they started the season off so hot. I thought they were going to beat Bama, and it's going to be really interesting with how they play this Steve Sarkisian situation. So, I think he's the coach for the job. It's just like, man, they can't catch a break with Ewers getting hurt and all that stuff.
It's been rough. And then you have Robinson, who's your best player, fumble it to begin overtime. Like, you can't write it, man. I mean, and again, just looking at college football schedule, October 15th, Alabama at Tennessee, that's going to be a fun one. Just talking SEC. But, I mean, as far as the top 25 goes, your top 10, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, Clemson, top 5. Then USC 4, they pulled out quite a win at Oregon State as they were struggling, but a good win for them. Kentucky 7, Tennessee 8, Oklahoma State 9, NC State 10. Any of that top 10 kind of surprise you or kind of just – or are you okay with everyone that's in the top 10 right now?
I'm pretty okay. I think I'm not super impressed with Clemson so far this year. Still, from what I've seen, they haven't looked super
great.
Elite. I know DJ is playing a lot better.
That performance against Wake Forest he had, that might have been what he needed as far as to really turn his career at Clemson around, because that was impressive.
I'm really surprised NC State's in the top 10. I think that's wow. But they're going to have to play some tough competition here. The ACC is one of those conferences that kind of eat their own.
Pretty much, dude. Because here's the thing. Let's say, for instance, like Clemson loses or one of these ACC teams loses. it's not a scenario like with the Big Ten or SEC. If they lose, that they can probably still get in the playoff. They just don't play a hard enough strength of schedule. I mean, as you're rounding out the top 25, I think the one that really surprises me here, and well, real quick, there's gonna be a great match. Kentucky's at Ole Miss this weekend, 7 at 14. Yeah. That'll be a good one. But a surprise to me, and again, I'm not going to criticize too much. We're still early in the year, and I think Kansas State deserves to be ranked after going to Oklahoma and beating the Sooners. I do think they deserve to be ranked.
Martinez, baby.
That's hilarious. Nebraska can't catch a break, but Kansas should be ranked. Kansas Jayhawks should be ranked in the top 20. I really think they should. It's been a long time that they've even had, let alone started off this well. The fact that they won 3 games in a season. So I think they deserve to be ranked personally.
They're going to have a tough couple games too. They're probably going to have to play Oklahoma, Texas, one of those two.
Yeah, their schedule. So, I mean, they beat an undefeated Duke this weekend. Outside of that, they beat Tennessee Tech, but they beat West Virginia. I mean, they beat Houston. They have Iowa State now, TCU, Oklahoma, and Baylor is their net. And then Oklahoma State comes to town.
Man, so yeah, dude, if they win out though,
if they can even if they lose just 1 or 2 games, I mean, it's the turnaround they've had this quickly is kind of insane. It really is, because normally when you're a new coach, it takes time to build a program. It does. I mean, this is a guy, Lance Leipold, that came in last year, at the very end of last year, and just immediately started turning the program around. And they've been great this year. I know Nebraska's talked about he's on their short list for hiring them. So good for Kansas, man. I mean, obviously I can't stand them in basketball. I really can't. They're also committed multiple recruiting violations. But anyway, good for their football program, because some of these teams have struggled. If they can build their programs back up, I want to see it. So
yeah,
definitely wishing them the best.
We still got quite a few undefeated teams in the Big Ten. Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Minnesota's still undefeated. So we got quite a few teams that are still in the hunt for that Big Ten championship. Michigan State's, I don't think, ranked anymore after that loss to Minnesota. They lost pretty bad. It was like 34-7.
Mm-hmm. Well, real quick, JD, my apologies for interrupting you. I realized something. We were talking Ohio State Rutgers. We had our guests give us the score. We never predicted the game. So, real quick, what's the score? Obviously, the spread is 39. Does Ohio State cover the spread? And what's the final score?
39 is a lot, but yeah, we're covering the spread. Okay. I think we score 8 touchdowns.
Okay.
I think we win the game 56-3.
56-3.
I don't think.
You don't think they score a touchdown?
I don't think they score a touchdown.
Okay. All right. Fair enough. I don't think Ohio State covered the spread because it's a 39-point spread. I do think, though, I think we're going to put up a lot of points. I think we're going to put up 56 points here. Yeah. I think it's going to be, man, you know what? They are going to cover the spread, because I don't think Rutgers can score that much either. So I'm going to go with, I think Ohio State's going to put up 62, actually. Go 62-10. I think Rutgers gets a touchdown. I do. I mean, in garbage time. But, guys, thank all of you for tuning in tonight. Remember that you can follow the Network 216. We are live on all platforms right now: YouTube, Twitter, Facebook. We are also on Instagram, and that's all at Network 216. Brand new on TikTok as well, at Network 216. So be sure, go follow us on those platforms as we bring you daily Ohio sports content. And right now, we have Down with the Browns is going to be live on all platforms as well. They're going to be previewing the Browns and Falcons for week 4, but also recapping an awesome Browns victory against the Steelers. Thank you guys all for tuning in tonight. This has been the Scarlet and Gray podcast. We will talk to you all next week, and go Bucks, baby.
OH.